This is a special episode of What's Been Better called Breakthroughs. Breakthroughs are bonus episodes where Sylvia and I have conversations with individuals about their journey of overcoming and discovering their purpose.
All right. And if you've been here before, you know we cuss. And if you're new here, please get used to it. Today, we are joined by Hope Williams. She's a licensed professional counselor here in the Atlanta metro area and the founder of the Smile Project. Welcome, Hope.
Thank you.
Yes. Hey, Hope. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Well, let's, Laura, you want to start like normal or you want to change
Yes.
things up?
Well, no, we'll start like normal.
Okay.
So Hope, I want to just kind of bring you into what we do here. So what Sylvia and I do when we start off our episode, we talk about what's been better with us, right? And it comes from as a therapist, I'm a solution focused therapist, and so I speak about what the client has been doing that's better, as opposed to talking about and rehearsing problems, right? So, and it only starts in the second session, not the first one. So this is the first one for you, but I'm just gonna ask you, in your life, what's been better? And it could have been from yesterday. You
Yeah.
could have been like, oh, life has been better. So what's been better with you?
Okay. So it's interesting that you referenced yesterday. So as Sylvia said, I'm a therapist. I'm an LPC in Georgia, and I work as a residential therapist at a psychiatric facility for children and teenagers in Atlanta. And so as
Okay.
part of my job here, I work with kids who have really intense emotions that typically result in some effort to escape in some way. And
Okay.
so, exposure therapy and exposure to emotion has been a really, really beneficial technique that's been used. And it's been one that I have run from, like, I don't know what, like, I've been trained, but I just have not wanted to do it. I can pick up
Okay.
on this is a kid who could really benefit from this. Um, and I still won't do it. And so yesterday, I agreed to go through exposure therapy myself. And so I
Whoa.
sat
Okay.
with one of the lead clinicians here and literally yesterday did exposure therapy to sadness and guilt. And so I can honestly say that's what's been better is that I was able to sit with and experience the emotions in a way that was helpful for me and something that I needed more than I realized, in addition to helping me get prepared to do this with my kids. So that's what's been.
That is
I
huge.
love that.
So
Wow.
so now I have a question.
Okay.
Tell me, you doing that, what difference did that make to you? What did you notice after doing that?
I felt lighter. Like there's been some stuff that
Mhm.
I've been dealing with um, at home that, so I've got background on like a little introduction on me. I've got three kids. I've got an 8-year old, a 2-year old, and a 6-month old. And so with that combination of ages, it's been like terrible. And I felt a
I
lot
can
of guilt.
imagine.
I have been feeling a lot of guilt and a lot of sadness around my role as a mom. And
Okay.
that is what came up for me in that exposure. And so that was
Mhm.
like before we got started. Well, when she first asked me about doing it, part of her question to me was, "Do you trust me enough to do this?" And so
Oh,
I
wow.
I do trust her, and I feel like she is genuinely a very concerned person and very she's a very validating person. She's somebody I feel very comfortable with. And so when she asks, "How are you doing?" or "How are things going?" it always comes across as though she's expecting and prepared for a genuine answer. And so if I was going to do this, she's someone who I could have early on said, "This is somebody I would sit through this with. Like I can trust her in this way." So
Okay.
she's also a mom, and she and I were pregnant at the same time with the 2-year-olds, and so she also has
Okay.
an older daughter. So just as far as understanding, like that has always been there. And so it created a comfort, a level of comfort that I think was really necessary to be able to do that kind of work. And it may have been 20 minutes, but it was like 20 minutes that I really needed.
That's
Okay.
awesome. I'm so glad you trusted yourself to do that.
Yeah.
And I have another just quick question.
Okay.
How, especially since you hadn't been doing this, you hadn't chosen to do it, it's like there maybe have been some resistance. How did you do it even though you were reluctant to doing it?
So I've been reluctant to do it with the kids that I work with. I've been able
Mhm.
to recognize, like, I can go to her and say, "This is the kid who needs exposure to this emotion." Like, I can work
Right.
with the kid, and I've been willing to work with the kids to get them to acknowledge the emotion that they have trouble sitting with that causes them to run,
Mhm.
or that causes them to cut, or that causes them to attempt suicide. Like, I can sit with them long enough to figure out what that emotion is, but then I cut off when it's time to sit with the emotion and for them to be
Okay.
exposed to the emotion. And so,
Mhm.
that was her reason for suggesting that I go through it so that I knew what it would feel like. And I think a part of her probably knew that I needed to know that it would work. And
Mhm.
so, going
Mhm.
back to your first question, as my response was that I felt lighter, but I also had been
Mhm.
able to, in sitting with the emotion, because part of that process is sitting with the emotion and not judging yourself for experiencing the emotion. And so I think part
Yes.
of what happened for me was that I was able to forgive myself for even having those thoughts and having those emotions that I felt so guilty about. And so,
Yes.
I think it's a very, very powerful tool and one that I have made a commitment now not to run from. So I've got my kids in mind for next week who I'm going to start doing this with because again, I've been familiar with it. I've just been like,
Right.
Mhm.
no, I don't think I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. So now I've got to move beyond that because I do have a desire to be able to help these kids and like this is something that can
Mhm.
really be helpful.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So the fact that you chose to do this, you did it because you wanted to help the children, or you just when your colleague wanted you or asked you to do it, it was just there to do it.
No, it was when she and I had the conversation, what she said, like I said, now I've been trained on this. It's not something that I'm just kind of bouncing into. I've had training, but for whatever reason, I've still shied away from doing it. And so when I went to her and I had one kid in particular, where I brought up again, because I can help them pull the emotion, like we can identify the emotion that's problematic. So when I went to her and I said, "Hey, I've got this child who needs to be exposed to this emotion. What do I need to do next?" She said, "Well, I can either tell you how to do it or I can you can go through it." And so the choice
I
was
see.
mine. And
Right.
so I felt like given realistically, I've already been trained on it. So obviously sitting through instruction isn't making me feel better about this. So that's why I
Right,
said,
Right.
let
right.
me go through it so that I can try this in a different way.
So it kind of
That's
gave
awesome.
you an idea of what the kid would go through
Hmm.
if they
Mm,
did it as well,
Yeah.
like, once you do it with them.
Hmm.
So it kinda
That's
gave you better practice of, like, maybe what to expect and, I guess just an overall idea of, like, "Okay, this is what this looks like
Hmm.
when this happens."
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
that's
Yep.
awesome, and it's
I love
awesome
it.
that you experienced it too, so you
Yeah.
know what it feels like.
Hmm.
Mhm. Yeah.
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 That's
So
powerful.
yes, that's awesome.
Okay.
Sylvia, what's been better with you?
Um, okay. So, I always talk about my garden,
Yes.
but you know how, like, doubly excited I am about my mom's garden.
Yes.
So she's finally getting, like, produce, like, fruit, like, things are coming. And
Oh, that's awesome.
the joy of hearing her say, "Yeah, I had to jump out of bed and run and check on my plants and see how they're doing," and it's like, "This is everything I always wanted, I love it." So I think it's beautiful, first of all, to share that with her,
Mhm.
because it's just a thing that she and I share,
Yes.
and being one of 3, you only get so much time with the parent or you only have so much
Mhm.
connection with them, so me having my thing with her is changing the dynamics. And it's just exciting. It's so exciting for her to see the fruits of her labor, literally,
That is
that she
beautiful.
was unsure about, that she was like, I don't know, it's taking forever, it's not happening, it's not working, and wanting to tap out, and now seeing it working has been perfect. So,
Now, what fruit
Beautiful.
does she have or vegetables does she have?
she got zucchini yesterday. The
Hey.
flowers started opening up, and it scared her because she was like, "What did I do? How do I do?" And I was like, "That's it. There they are." So, she had been getting like, her bell peppers were coming, and oh my god, the woman I said, "Mom, don't put a bunch of seeds. It only takes 1." She dropped, like, 30 onion seeds because 'cause they're so tiny
Oh.
and basically in a clump,
Mhm.
and she's like, "Oh, they're not coming, it's not working," and then they started sprouting, and I could see how close they were. And
Ah.
then she was like, "Well, I'm not gonna touch them." And I'm like, "You need to touch them. You have to separate them." So yesterday, she finally separated them, and she was like, "So there were 30." And I was like, "And this is why I told you to only do 1 seed." And she's like, "I don't think I did that many." And I was like, "Mom, obviously,
That
because
is
they're not
hilarious.
going to replicate. This is you." So, yeah, still working on it only takes 1 seed with
I
her, but
I'm like that with her. I like that because I dropped about 4 or 5 seeds in
oh my goodness.
that one
In
little
your little
hole.
pods?
Yes,
Lori. Your pods are but this big, they're so tiny.
I know. So I was like, one of them has to grow.
You cannot waste seeds, we might need those later down the road.
Okay,
Who
I'm gonna
knows what's
learn to
gonna
do that.
happen?
Okay,
Yes,
I'm
1
I'm
seed.
like that. I'm totally like your mom in that way.
Oh my goodness. Well, but yeah, that's what's been better is sharing that with my mom.
That's
So,
That's
awesome.
really
That is
cool.
awesome.
yep.
Yeah.
So what's been better for you, Lori?
Well, I feel better.
Good.
I think for I don't know if I told you, but for the past 3 weeks, and this is the end of the third week, Tommy and I have been working out. And
Mhm.
so we work out Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And it's not a workout like a boot camp workout. Is we do a little bit of calisthenics, like jumping jacks and touching your toes kind of thing. And then we go walking for about 2.5 to 3 miles. And so now we're up to like 3.5 miles.
Oh, wow.
And I think we're gonna cap it at 5.
Okay.
So we'll just work up to 5, but I know my body,
Mhm.
and I could, get overwhelmed and maybe, like, start to feel sick, especially with the weather being crazy,
Mhm.
because the first
Mhm.
time we went out there, it was, like, 18 degrees, when, it was
No,
cold
ma'am.
like that. But,
Mm-mm.
um but just on today is yeah, it's the end of the week, but the other day, I think it was Wednesday, I felt like I was coming down with a cold. And I
Oh,
was like,
no.
"Oh, no, because I have this to do, I have that, I gotta work, I wanna keep working out," like and so, I took my vitamin C and big shout
Mhm.
out to, oregano, oil of oregano. That
Yes.
is the most hideous shit ever,
It's
but
disgusting.
let me tell you, and I was like, "Oh, do I have anything in the house to" because it's droplets, it's not in a
Mhm.
capsule, so I gotta
Right.
drink that damn oil.
Yes. That's how I have it, and it is horrifying.
It is
Ugh.
hideous. But it was right mid, session with a client. So right after that client, I ran downstairs. I said, "Oh, I have some Dr. Pepper." Now I put some Dr. Pepper. I dropped those oil like 2 droplets, and
Oh,
I mixed it real
no.
quick, and then and then I put another little, shot of, Dr. Pepper by itself. So I drank it real fast, and then I took it, a little shot after, like a, afterwash kinda thing. And when I tell you in my next session, I could feel my body feeling better, like,
Mhm.
instantly. It's the craziest thing.
Yeah.
So, shout out to oil of oregano, but I started to feel better, and so that's my what's been better. I'm better, I don't feel like I'm about to come down with a cold, and it's crazy because as soon as you know that you're about to get a cold, do something about it so it
Yes.
won't linger because that next morning, I felt like I had a slight sore throat, but
Mhm.
it would have been horrible. It would have been worse had I
Right.
not done anything.
Right.
And so I sped that cold process up really fast and it's
Mhm.
over.
Yeah.
So I'm a lot better. I'm gonna work out after after this podcast, and we're gonna be good to go.
Okay. I saw somebody on TikTok making their own oil of oregano the other day, and I was like, okay, how much oregano am I growing next year? I already started like calculating in my head. I could just stop going to the store and buying. I'm always looking for something to stop going to the store for. If I
That's
can
smart.
grow it, I will
Yeah,
do it. So I
yeah.
was like, how many square feet of space could I give up for more oregano? So, because
But
I got
what
to
with
think
the
about the pizza.
oil?
Oh, it's just olive oil. It's just a certain kind of olive oil.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I was thinking, okay, I got to think about the pizza garden first. How much space can I give up for extra oregano? So, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So, well, Miss Hope, I'm gonna let you start, Sylvia, because
okay.
you and Hope are very acquainted, and then I'm just gonna jump in.
Yeah, Hope and I met in December for one
Mhm.
of her programs. And Hope, will you tell everybody about Smile Project? And let me just preface this with thank you. Thank you for creating something that I know as a child who lost a parent. Um, I lost my parent in high school. I can't imagine you losing them earlier. Thank you for creating something that I know would have been so helpful to me even now as an adult because I see um, that it's something that is just so needed, especially for kids of color. And yeah, just thank you. Thank you. But will you tell everybody about Smile Project?
Yes, and I appreciate that. Smile Project is an organization that I started in 2016. And SMILE is an acronym for Significant Moments Impact Lives Eternally. And so it started as a counseling practice, outpatient counseling practice in 2016. And then in 2020 is when I developed it into a nonprofit organization in order to continue with the programs that had already been in place. And so my goal with this organization is to equip, empower, and educate in different ways as we also connect communities based on what's needed. And so when I first got started with even the thought of Smile Project, it was with children who had lost a parent. That's who I had in mind. My mom died when I was 6 years old from cancer, and my dad raised me. Like my parents were married, my mom died, and I stayed with my dad. And I realized that that's not the case for everybody. And so even from that, it's just like, yes, I was young, and I'm realizing now that my life could have been a whole lot different. And so it's with grieving kids in mind that Smile Project was developed. And so now it's morphed into more than just this population. But in the programs that I do, I still keep these specific kids in mind. So the program that Sylvia was part of is the Holiday Angel Tree. And this is a holiday party that is for children who have lost a parent. Like I said, I realized that my story is a lot different than many other kids and families. Um, in that I still had a parent. I still had my person. I still had someone who I knew loved me and was going to be there for me regardless. Again, that's not the case for everyone. And so with this program, with this the holiday angel tree, it's it's a party. Like we get together and it's a time for the kids and the families to just have a good time. The holidays can be difficult when there's grief involved. And so it's not anything that's based on situation other than the kids have lost a parent. It could be that they are being raised by the surviving parent. Some of the kids are being raised by a grandparent. Some are being raised by an aunt or an uncle. Um, that's the only thing that brings this group together is that they've lost a parent. There's no focus on financial eligibility or anything like that.
Right.
All that I'm looking for is making sure that we are touching the lives of kids who are missing a parent during the holidays. And so this year
Mhm.
was the largest one that we've done. There were 28 kids signed up, and so part of what happens when they sign up is that they submit a list of what they want and what they need. They get to provide three things that they want, three things that they need, and then there's some just absolutely wonderful people in the community and in my personal life a lot of times who make the commitment and go all out for these kids. And so they get
Oh,
to show up and
wow.
they get their gifts. And this year we did cookies. They baked holiday cookies at Young Chefs Academy in Sandy Springs. And so they were able to just have a good time and just be there with other people who they knew without us talking about it. Like there doesn't have to be a whole lot of conversation about it. I just want them to be able to look around and know it's not just me. Because one of the things that I can say is that I didn't talk about my mom's death until I was like college age and older. That's a long time
Same.
Wow.
to go feeling like this is something that's off limits. Like I just I didn't feel comfortable talking about it.
Mhm. Yeah.
And recently, I was talking to my dad and just kind of like asking him, as I'm even as an adult still processing what this means for me, asking him like, who was my person when it first happened? If there was a time
Mhm.
when I wanted to talk to somebody about her, who was that safe person for me? Who was that person that was going to be able to sit with me as a 6 year old and be okay
Right.
doing that? And he said, I really don't
Right.
know who that would have been. And so
Wow.
for me, that made it make sense that I didn't talk about it because, like, who was
There
comfortable
was no
sitting
one.
with it? So,
Right.
Smile Project came from that space. It came from actually when I went back to school for counseling, it was right after my grandmother had died. And my bachelor's degree is in business marketing. So, counseling was a complete switch for me. But when my
Yeah.
grandmother died, my niece was around 6 or 7. And so when she died, that was my first experience with the loss of a close person since my mom. So I had gone all through life up until 2010 and hadn't lost
Mhm.
anybody else. And so to see my niece at the age that she was and experience grief in a way that I could understand, I said, this doesn't make sense. It doesn't
Right.
make sense that there are kids who are that size, there are people who are this size, this age, experiencing grief, and adults have to go on and do what adults have to do. And they are left to kind
Mhm.
of fend for themselves. And so that's how the organization came to be. Um, I completely lost it. My husband came to my job to let me know that my grandmother had died. I lost it. My boss said, go home. I don't want you to come tomorrow. You go take care of you. And part of me taking care of me ended up me being on campus the next day applying for graduate school for counseling. And so
Wow.
here we are. So
Wow. I
yeah,
I have a few questions for you. First, with the Angel Project, how do children know? How do you get the word out?
it's word of mouth. So when I usually start reaching out in October to the kids and the families who have previously participated. I reach out and see if they are wanting to come back, and it's open for kids who are in grade school and younger. So the youngest, we she's like our little baby. So she came in, her mom had died, I think in August of the year that she was born, like she was born and her mom died within days. So
Oh,
when she
wow.
came, she was only a few months old. So she's been
Okay.
back every year. And so I'm saying
Look
that
at
to say
that.
like babies can come in all the way through 12th grade. And so it's word of mouth. Well, as far as like the kids who have participated before are invited to come back. And then also the word has kind of started to spread just in the community. And so people who have participated before, families who have participated before, have now invited more families to come. And then also people who are in my circle and know about it also are able to invite people. So if there doesn't have to be an immediate connection to me. Just if somebody who I have not been able to reach out to or touch directly finds out about it and wants to come in, they can always email me or call, and I will provide the information once the event is scheduled.
Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. And when you said that your grandmother passed and you decided to go to grad school,
Mhm.
like what clicked? Because you said the next day you went to enroll in grad school. What was there for you?
I had been doing some volunteer work. I had leading up to her death. I had kind of been feeling as though I was working, but not working where I was supposed to be, putting my effort, putting my energy. And so that had been something that I was struggling with. It wasn't like a snap decision where, oh, she died, I'm going to school to be a counselor. It wasn't like that. It was I had been doing some volunteer work for a camp that does camp sessions for kids who have lost a parent, or and I think in that camp it was a parent or a caregiver, primary caregiver. So I was doing that kind of volunteer work for a while, and I just didn't feel like it was enough. It wasn't enough. It wasn't enough for what I needed to be doing. And so
Right.
Okay.
that was kind of the shifting point for me, was like that connection with seeing my niece and knowing that that was the case, and like all of what had been happening before her death. That was kind of my, okay, this is time.
Hmm.
Okay. How
Yeah.
did you will you talk more about the other programs that you guys offer? Um, I know you do a lot around empowerment.
Yeah, so um, I'm going to mentally run through the calendar. So
Okay.
the Angel Tree happens in December. It's the Saturday before Christmas, or the Saturday leading up to Christmas, as long as it's not Christmas Eve. So I try to give about a week, just to give you a window of time or an idea of time. I try to put like a week between the event and Christmas Day. So there's that. And then in May is the tea. And this is it's a tea in celebration of girls and the women they love, wearing and sharing our pearls. This happens the Saturday of Mother's Day weekend. And this was important for me time wise because Mother's Day had always been so difficult. And it was a time, it's for me always had been a time where I really didn't care if I got out of the bed or not. My dad, growing up, my dad was a pastor, so church is where I was. But Mother's Day, church wasn't where I needed to be. It was just
Right.
that bad, and like just the thoughts of why me? Why did this have to happen to my family? I need my mom. Why can't I have my, like it just was too much. And so even after I became a mom, Mother's Day was still hard. And it was very obvious that I needed to do something to change that narrative for myself. And so what I did was I started doing this tea in order to celebrate relationships in a way that's not specific for mothers and daughters. And so it's a celebration of the relationship shared among women and girls, regardless of the connection, so that we can celebrate, so that we can recognize the importance, again, going back to the acronym SMILE, the importance of these connections, these relationships, these moments that we're able to share together. And so we've had my aunt comes with me. My sister has come for all of the events. My mother-in-law, my sisters-in-law, like we just, it's a celebration of relationships. And so like it's so cool for me that my daughters are not able to just come and sit with me, but they can sit with their aunties. They can sit with their granny.
Mm,
They can sit
I
with
like
and
that.
share time and space with, and my stepmother has been there. So it's like it's so important to be able to share space and recognize the significance, not just with mother daughter, because for various reasons everybody can't do that. And so for me it's due to physical death, but for some people mom is still living and the relationship is just not there, so Mother's Day may be difficult.
Hmm.
And so it's not just
Yeah.
looking at the celebration, or putting emphasis on the time of year for people who Mother's Day is difficult for, but also for those people who have relationships that are worthy of celebrating, and they want to be able to recognize these connections. And so part of with the tea, part of what I do is the wearing and sharing our pearls part is in reference to how do we own the experiences that we've had, and then how do we share that wisdom with those around us. And so that's where the wearing and sharing of pearls comes in. And so
I love
there's
that.
also an activity that involves pearls, and it's been something different each time. But how do we share that? How do we connect in a different way versus just being, I mean, because we're going to be beautiful when we get together. So, versus instead of
Mm-hmm.
just being beautiful, how can we also make this a significant moment? How can we make this a time that has an impact? So that happens in
That's
May.
awesome.
And then Father's Day weekend is Tiaras and Ties. And so this is a time where women and girls are able to, along the same lines, celebrate relationships with the men in their lives. And so last
Okay.
year was Top Golf. The year before that, it was a virtual cooking class because that's when the pandemic was pretty hot. So there was a
Mm-hmm.
virtual cooking class with Chef Jameson Smallwood. He did an amazing job of leading the. There were young girls and adult women who joined with fathers and other men in their lives. So it was super cool. And then the year
Okay.
before that, there was a virtual dance. And then the first year, we kicked it off with an in-person dance. And so that's been an
Oh, that's
opportunity.
so
It's so
nice.
cool. Like it's just amazing and such an honor to be able to see people just come together. And so, and
Yeah.
with that, there were grandfathers that have participated. There was one year when an uncle flew in from Michigan to bring his niece. Like it's just been
That's
Oh, wow.
really
so
good to
nice.
be able to have that experience and create that experience so that the relationships can be honored and celebrated. So
Yeah.
I mean June. Then in
Mm-hmm.
October is celebrating girls of color, and this is where we bring together girls of color for a day of activities that are designed to educate, inspire, and empower. And just speaking to and filling the cups of these girls in a way that they may not receive out in the world. And so we're instilling affirmations. We're teaching them how to affirm themselves and each other so that when they go out into the world, they already have what they need in them. And there's not room for somebody else to put in what doesn't belong there. And so
I love
this
that.
year, there were a lot of phenomenal women of color who spoke in different ways to the girls. They made jewelry and they talked about how selecting the pieces that they used for their bracelets could be reflective of them as individuals and the uniqueness of them also could be reflected in the pieces that they put on their bracelets. There was a STEM project where they were able to incorporate affirmations through STEM. They did uh, the older girls had a workshop where they focused on affirming themselves and just looking at how can we do this in different ways. We started the day with yoga and meditation, and we were outside at a park, and so they had their yoga mats and they were able to just really be with themselves. And it was amazing to see. And so that happens every October. And then this year, there's some more new programs that are coming up for this year. And so the first thing that's coming up is a brunch series that's going to be an extension of celebrating girls of color. And so Inga Bailey is a good friend and very um, influential in different areas. And so she has an etiquette school, and we are partnering to do a brunch and etiquette series for girls K through 12 so that they can experience like how we have girlfriend brunches and we go out with our girlfriends. So they're creating. Our goal is to create a community for these girls so that they can feel connected, so that they can go out and have brunch with their girls and learn some etiquette lessons. And where she's going to be focusing on some different topics, not just like how do you hold your fork, but also what does healthy communication look like? What do you look like? What do you look for in friendships? How do you gauge the status or the safety in your relationship. So hitting on some pretty deep topics that it still falls under that umbrella of etiquette that she's able to speak to. And Inga has been heavily involved with many of the programs in the past. And so she's familiar with the program, and the girls are familiar with her, which I think is gonna be a huge benefit. But she's just as passionate about influencing and impacting our girls and preparing them for success. So I'm really, really excited about that. And what else is coming up? We're going to do a mindfulness hike in March, and
Oh, wow.
then in August, a back to school meditation to get the kids geared up and prepared to be focused in a different way and like equip them with some tools and some skills that can help academic success. So I'm looking forward to those things this year.
Girl. Oh my
Yeah.
God. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. It's
Right?
whoo. I mean, I'm just sitting over here like bubbling up,
Mhm.
and my heart is so happy to hear this because it's like one person can't do it all,
So
right?
please say that
No.
again,
And
please.
and I'm over here in my bubble like, what more can I do? What more can I do? And
Mhm.
then to hear you speak about this, it just like it enlightens me, man. It just and so my question to you is, you have all these awesome ideas and you put them into action. You mentioned one person who's helping you. Who else spearheads this with you? Or are you just doing this alone?
So I am not, it is me, and I'm not as alone as I was in the beginning, which I'm very
Okay.
grateful for. So I have
Okay.
a
Good.
friend who is working closely with me from many of the programs, and every time we talk, when we're talking about this stuff, it's like her immediate response is, "What do you need? How can I help?" And so that's been a
Nice.
huge relief, not just for holding me accountable to making sure that I'm not just having these ideas in my mind, but that we're actually moving on them. We've got a team of ambassadors who are in place in order to help with planning and programs, programming and volunteering on the day of everything and all of that. But there's always room for more.
Okay. Okay. Because I just thought about how I could see myself and my daughters and my mom and my sister and my soon to be in-laws at your tea.
Hmm.
And so and the in is the tea and the what was the other thing right after the tea? Is are they
Yes.
together?
No, so it's
No, not the tiara, but the
oh, Girls of Color, celebrating Girls of Color.
I think you mentioned it right after the tea.
So
It
she did
may
the
be it's
Mother's Day
mhm.
and the are you talking about the etiquette thing?
Yeah.
Oh, the
Is it
brunch.
the etiquette?
The
So the
brunch.
brunch is new. The first one is coming up in February. And
Mhm.
then I think we set it for every other month. There's four. No, there's four. So they're spread out, but the first one is definitely in February. And so the best thing to do for anybody who's interested in getting involved or staying up to date on what's going on is subscribe to the website so that you'll get the newsletters with the announcements for new programs. You'll get the dates and all of that of any programs that are coming up. But I would love to see you at the tea with your family. And so
Yes.
I
Yes.
actually have a call today with the venue to get started with confirming details for this year. So
Mhm.
that, like I said, is Mother's Day weekend. That's Saturday, and
Okay.
then
I think
Okay.
the event that I'm speaking of, I think is involved inside the tea. I think you
oh,
might have
wearing and sharing our pearls. Uh-huh.
mhm.
Yeah, so yes, that is
Yeah.
part
Okay.
of the tea. That's part of the tea.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so the
Okay.
conversation happens. And normally, what I like to do ahead of the tea is get some feedback, get some videos from women and girls where they are sharing these pearls and sharing the
Okay.
knowledge. And so then we put that together, and that's put that we watch it, we view it during the tea.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
And will
That's
you
awesome.
tell everybody your website?
Yes.
And we'll mention it again throughout.
Okay. Yep. It's smileprojectempowers.com. And then we're also on Facebook and Instagram.
That is
Under
lovely.
Smile Project Empowers.
Instagram is smile.project.empowers. And then
Okay.
Facebook is Smile Project Empowers.
Okay, good. And
Yeah.
we'll make sure to share that with everybody on our socials as well.
Okay.
So,
I
Yeah.
appreciate
Yeah.
yeah.
S- So Hope, you mentioned that you didn't talk about your the passing of your mother until
it.
college.
Hmm.
Now, was that purposeful or is that something that just happened?
I think that it may have started off as something that just happened, and then it became intentional.
Mhm.
Oh,
People
okay.
who knew
Okay.
me knew my dad. They knew a lot about my dad, um, but they would have had to ask about my mom. And
Mhm.
I think that over time, it got to be that I didn't want the pity or the
Right.
sympathy or
Mm-hmm.
the awkwardness when they say, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry," and I didn't know what to feel.
Mhm.
And
Right.
talking to my brother, so I'm the youngest of four, and my brother and my sister, my oldest brother and sister, they were close to adults when she died. No, actually, they were adults when she died, and so they have a lot more memories than I have. And so, in talking to my brother over the years, like one of the things that he's always said is that me and my mom were really, really close, and I think I felt bad for not being able to remember her. And so now, as an adult, I realized that that was likely a protection that kind of naturally happened, because that was a huge loss. And then to hear how he talks about our relationship and our connection and like the way that she invested in me, I would imagine that was huge as a 6 year old to lose that. And so, yeah, I think it definitely started off just kind of like being a natural response and then avoidance after that. Once I was able to like make a decision about whether or not to talk about her, I just didn't know what to say because over time my memory started to fade, and now I don't remember her. I just remember stories about her, and that's hard.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's always interesting too. You're so young when this person dies that other people have memories of you or of you with them that you don't have. And so I always had trouble, and I don't know if you have the same trouble of, is that how I felt? Or is that really what happened?
Hmm.
Or because you're not sure if you can trust that that's what happened because you don't remember. It's like someone's trying to help you fill in the gap, but you're not sure if you can trust that filling in of the gap. It's a yeah, I completely understand.
Yeah.
Like, and especially the further away you get from that loss.
Hmm.
Like the same amount of time has passed or even double the amount of time or triple the amount of time, you're further and further away from those memories, that connection, those stories,
Hmm.
those feelings, any of it. So it's yeah, I get what you mean about what do you do with that,
Yeah.
with the information?
Yeah. And it's like I know it was hard. Again, my siblings were adults, and there's a big age gap between me and them, and so I think it was hard for them to accept that I didn't remember, which
Mhm.
made it hard for me to accept that I didn't remember and be okay with
Right.
Oh,
that.
wow.
And so in time, I've just come to understand that there's nothing, I can't change that. And so
Yeah.
allowing
Mhm.
myself permission to not remember and be okay
Yeah.
with it. And so that's been
Yeah.
a huge thing for me as an adult. Um, but again, just like, yeah, I think that I can trust him that we were close. And I think, and it's interesting because there's times when my dad will tell me, like, you really remind me of your mom when that happened. Or like, for instance, with the tea last year, one of the biggest compliments that I got that day was that he saw my mom and me. And so it's like
Oh,
Mhm.
I'm
wow.
still able to feel a connection even though I'm not connected, right? Like even if
Right.
I don't
Right.
Right.
remember,
Right.
it means so much to me to be able to know that like she's still showing up through me. And so
Right. Right.
yeah,
Mm.
it's been an
S-
interesting journey.
s- I can imagine. When you see pictures of her, does it jog any memories of her? Okay. And I'm curious to know, and I'm just thinking right now that that experience could have been so traumatic that maybe there was a blockage there.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, the other thing is, I'm curious to know what it was like growing up with dad raising you. Because was it just you at that stage, or was there anybody like 2 years, 3 years above you, or was
No,
it just you and dad?
just me and dad. So I have my sister who's right. I'm saying right above me, but next is there's 10 years difference there, and then 17
Okay.
years between me and my brother, and 18 between me and my oldest sister. So by the
Okay.
Okay.
time my mom died, it was just like as a result, it was just me and dad until my dad got remarried.
Mm,
And so like yeah, I'm definitely um I don't want to say daddy's girl as in um attached to my dad, but I'm attached to my dad. Like his
mhm,
influence is so strong in my life because he poured a lot into me, and like he showed up,
mhm,
and he really he
mhm.
took his role seriously. And so
That's
Right.
good.
um I'll never forget, I was a freshman in college, and my a girl in my dorm, like her tire was flat, and she didn't know what to do about it. I said, I got you. Because my dad had made me change a tire that was not flat so that he could feel comfortable
Oh,
knowing that if I had an issue,
Look at
I knew
that.
what to do.
he prepared
He
you.
Right.
prepared me in the
Yeah.
weirdest ways. And so it was like, it didn't make
Mhm.
sense to me as a girl growing up, but like he did what he knew to do. And so it's
Right.
this, I mean, so we joke about it now. We're able to joke about it now, but it was definitely well, so and so's parents aren't making her come home this early. Why do I have to come this
Yeah.
early? Or
Yep.
um, why can't I wear these jeans? Or what's wrong with these shorts? Or like the sitting in the stores together, and I had to try on the clothes and make sure that the clothes were okay before the clothes would get like it was just he had a different way of doing things. And
Right.
now I find myself laughing because it's in me. And so like when I go
Right.
shopping for my daughters, I'm just like, why are these shorts so short? Why do they
Right. Right.
That
Right.
is hilarious.
yeah,
Exactly. Okay.
we have come to we've come to have a relationship that I value and I cherish.
That's
Look at that.
beautiful.
That's
That's
so
beautiful.
awesome.
Well, this was a great conversation. Hope, thank you so much for joining us today. Tell the people again where they can find the Smile Project, find you as a counselor or volunteer or become an ambassador.
Okay. So the website again is smileprojectempowers.com. And on the website, you can get information about counseling. You can also get information about subscribing to the website to get updates. There's a link or a page that's dedicated to ambassadors, and you can submit your information there if you want to be a volunteer with the organization. And then also, if you are wanting to serve on the board of directors, we're also open to increasing or growing our board, and so that's another great need. But if volunteering on a program by program basis, or if you've got a special talent or um, specific interest, then definitely reach out so that I know that you're out there and that you're interested, and we can see how to get you involved.
That's
Thank you.
awesome. Thank you so
Awesome.
much,
I
Hope.
really appreciate y'all having me.
Oh, come
Um,
back anytime if there's
yeah,
something else you
please.
want to talk about or not so
If you
serious, you might have something funny to talk about.
Yeah, and if something you want to promote, like
Yes.
the different brunches, or, or something you're spearheading, or even about the Angel Project
Yes.
as it comes about, please come back
Okay.
and promote it.
Okay. Definitely
Yes.
will.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye. That's it for this week's show. I'm Lori Scott.
And I'm Sylvia Johnson, and you've been listening to What's Been Better.
A big thank you to Lagan Music Inc. for providing our music. This show is edited and produced by us with a little help from our family and friends. We love you all.
We want to hear what's been better for you. To be a guest on the show, send us an email to questions@whatsbeenbetter.com or you can find us on Instagram and TikTok at What's Been Better Podcast.
Thanks for listening.